need. Why wait? These savings won't last forever. Head to Builder's Paradise today and experience even low prices on everything you love. Builder's Paradise, where low prices just got lower. Don't miss out. Shop now.
Welcome to another episode of Talk That Get Results. I'm Webbo Herbert, and as per usual, we're here every Tuesday evening with something that at least we think is of community interest and or of some concern. And if you think that you have something which fits into that category, you'd like to find out how you can be a part of the program, well, why don't you drop us a line, address it to a Let's Talk program in K.O. Vaughan Radio, P.O. Box 195, Charlestown in Nevis. Or give us a call. Our numbers are 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. By the way, those will be the numbers you'll use to be a part of this evening's discussion. Again, thank you all very much for joining us. Your voice in the community, Talk That Get Results. With regard to your participation in the show, we encourage you to call in on the numbers listed 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. Here's a suggestion. You have a question or comment. Perhaps you can get a pencil, piece of paper, write it down so that you're well organized. And when you're getting on the show, you take as little time as possible so that we can accommodate as many of you as we can. We ask only, first of all, you respect yourself and then respect others, because we will not accept anything we deem that's not within our broadcast standards. But we encourage you to always be forceful with your point. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community, Talk That Get Results. Tonight, oh, by the way, you can also follow our live video stream of this program on our Facebook page at Vaughan Radio and our YouTube channel at Vaughan Radio. Click subscribe. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community, Talk That Get Results. This evening's program is in two segments. The first segment, we'll be celebrating one of our Head Start programs, Stepping Stone Nursery. We'll find out all about it, and we'll find out how you can support their 35th anniversary. That's a lot of lives they've molded throughout the years. In the second segment, more heat will be on, but we'll come to that when that time comes. Nicole Lawrence is a member of the anniversary committee of the Stepping Stone Nursery 35th anniversary. Nicole, good evening.
Good evening, and good evening to those in Radio Land. It's a pleasure to be here promoting Stepping Stone Nursery.
This is not good journalism, because I know you, so I'm able to say, but the other lovely lady, I don't know. Can you tell us who you are?
Good evening. My name is Onika Fortune Pollard. I am a staff representative for the 35th, for the Stepping Stone Nursery 35th anniversary.
That's why I didn't know your name, because everybody else has two names. You have three.
Yes.
Okay. Well, anyway, it's good to have you, and here on the Powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean. It's your first time?
No, I was here on Saturday.
Oh, really? But that's great. But it's good to have you here on the Let's Talk program. So, we're having the 35th anniversary. But before we got to 35th, why don't you tell us who's Stepping Stone Nursery? Anyone?
Stepping Stone Nursery is a child care provider service. It is owned by Mr. and Mrs. Descent.
Okay, what do? We take care of kids?
Yes.
What ages?
The ages From 3 months to 3 years.
And not after that?
No, sir. They go to preschool.
Oh, really?
They're nursery.
Why did I always think that, they had 4 and 5 and stuff like that? Never?
Oh, yes, they do.
Oh,
They
okay.
do return. They do return.
So,
They do return on vacation breaks.
oh, okay.
Yes, they do.
All right, so that's what we want to know as well,
Okay.
because what we're also doing, for the folks who do not know about Stepping Stone Nursery, we're telling them about them, so that if you can take more people beginning from tomorrow, they can come. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, so that's kind of what we're doing as well. So you have kids there from what?
3 months to 3 years.
3 months to 3 years.
Yes, sir.
And then on vacation, and if you don't have a sitter and stuff like that, they can always come.
Yes,
back.
sir.
Okay,
Yes.
so there you go. How many children we do? We do about 200?
Per day?
Yeah.
45, sir.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So, and where we located currently?
Lower Stony Grove and Pump Road. There are 2 locations. Yes.
The 2 locations have different ages?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
So Lower Stony Grove, we cater for children that are 3 months to 2 years, and Pump Road, the kids are 2 to 3 years.
Oh, okay. All right. And you can always take kids? Meaning that there are times when, like right now, if persons are listening and they're wondering, well, I'm expecting, so in the 3-4 months, where do I go? You can take them?
Okay, so you call 662-7226 and we set up an appointment.
Okay, so on to the anniversary then. So we have 35 years, now what?
Okay, so Stepping Stone is celebrating 35 years in the Federation, and we have decided that we are going to do a year-long anniversary celebration. We started with some preliminary events, fun days, we had community lunches, and our big event starts on April 25th. It's the Stepping Stone Nursery Anniversary Parade and Grand Launch. And it starts at the Charlestown Methodist parking lot and it goes to the CSS Villa. We are inviting past students, parents, past parents, the general public, all those who are interested, to join us on Friday morning beginning at 9. We assemble at the Charlestown Methodist Church parking lot and we journey up to the villa. At the end of the parade, we are hoping that we form a big 35 capturing the community. So we are going to form up into the shape of 35, and so we are asking for a tremendous outpouring of support so that we can have a good showing. And with that, we are expecting that persons would sponsor, give donations to support the school. And following that, on the Sunday, the 27th of April, we have a church service. This is at 9 a.m. at the St. Paul's Anglican Church. And this, we chose St. Paul's Anglican Church because our Mothers Union, the St. Paul's Anglican Church Mothers Union, being a patron of Stepping Stone over the years. And so we are expecting parents, students, past students, supporters, well-wishers to come on out Sunday morning to worship and celebrate with Stepping Stone. And then on Friday, May 2nd, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., that's the Stepping Stone 35 Fun Sports. The teachers are planning and they have already decided that it's going to be a great event. There's so much in store, and so we expect the parents, well-wishers, supporters, sponsors, donors, to come out and support. And then our big event is the Stepping Stone 35 Cocktail Gala. This is on Saturday, May 10th. So we are looking at it as a Mother's Day treat. And this is at the Malcolm Gishad Recreational Park from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. The tickets are EC $135 per person, and per couple is $235 per person. The dress is elegant, but we expect that you come out and you support, and while we honor those stalwarts who have been really the supporters of the school. So we are soliciting the support of the public in terms of purchasing tickets. The tickets are available at the school, and any member of the committee, Sister Phillip, yes, at Divinity Touch, he also has tickets, as well as you can drop off donations there as well. So we are hoping that the general public supports Stepping Stone, the Cocktail Gala, where we celebrate and, fellowship together and to show the support to the school. There's the graduation ceremony, that's on July 12th. That's for the school children. The venue is Montpellier. And then we have another big event for the public. This is on August 9, Saturday, August 9, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's a Nevis Island tour. We are expecting that the public support. You will hear more about this, but this is a celebration of the staff and the anniversary planning team, and we have decided that we are going to invite the public, because we know some persons who are coming for Culturama, they may need some sort of cool down, and so they can have the opportunity to tour the island with us. And then we have a talent extravaganza that's planned for October, November. You'd hear more about that, but that would be featuring Stepping Stone Nursery talent, past and present students, as well as some of the teachers, parents, and support. We are also planning an anniversary magazine, which would be launched in November 25. We are hoping that we are able to capture some of the memories of the activities over this year, as well as stories from the past, contributions from past students, parents, supporters, and we are looking forward to the general public, the businesses, corporate sponsors donating to the cause of the magazine. And then we are hoping that towards the end of the year, we are doing some virtual workshops. The teachers would be involved in that, and they will be focusing on customer care and quality child care. So you can be listen out for that and more details on that. And then we have a holiday appreciation dinner in December 19th. This is to show support to the staff at Stepping Stone Nursery, and we will provide more details on that. The anniversary celebrations are going to be held under the theme Growing Together, Celebrating Loyalty and Nurturing a Sustainable Future, and that theme was submitted by Hadassah Mills, one of the parents at Stepping Stone Nursery. We also have a slogan, and the slogan is going to be quite important and visible throughout the celebrations as well. It's 35 years of love, learning, and legacy, and this was submitted by past parent, Grandma Shari Blake. So basically the anniversary involves not only the present students and parents, but the past parents and supporters, past parent like myself.
You must have quite a register, because 35 years, and they started months and stuff like that, so you get a lot of 30-something years alumni.
Yes.
How have they been supporting the planning so far? You have to send me to look for them, or they've been showing up and supporting?
We need to look for some
Yes,
of them.
yes.
Yes.
So you need
we
my
haven't-
help.
You know,
Yes.
we've had some, but we have
Yes,
not
yes.
been able to capture all.
Yes.
Yes. And when we look at the register, it's quite extensive.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, we have parents, and I think Teacher Fortune could tell you more about that, but we have the first set of students, well, the first is actually a current parent.
Yes.
Yes, so that's the legacy of Stepping Stone.
Second generation.
Second generation. We actually have the second generation of the Stepping Stone students.
Hadassah, is Hadassah?
No, Fortune, Teacher Fortune.
Teacher Fortune. Teacher Fortune.
Maybe. This way.
Yeah. Fortune, right?
Yes, sir.
I won't forget that, because I normally have bad luck. So I'll always remember good luck from Teacher Fortune. So the folks who we have to look for, right, so that they can help and assist. Most people wouldn't say this on air. Only person who will do it is me. You find some of them bluff a lot. The past folks will say they will come and support and they don't.
I am not sure that is the case. I think it's a case of awareness. I think some of them need to be reminded that they went to Stepping Stone because they were
Don't have any
babies.
memories.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Unfortunately, it's not the era then of the social media where you had all of that.
So they need to be told that they went to Stepping Stone.
Yes, so we want to
Yes.
the parents remind the children,
Yes.
so they can come out and support.
Especially the journey parade. Yes.
Okay. So the parents, we are working on the parents to let the children know that they went to Stepping Stone.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And we're working on some of the
Some
children.
of the children.
Yes.
Okay. To
Just
let-
a reminder.
Just to a reminder.
Yes.
What was my godchild name again? Dakia? Dakia knows?
Yes,
Yes.
she's a
Oh,
part
okay.
of the
Planning committee.
Okay,
Yes.
good, because so I've done my part. I let her know that she went there and she is in. So all the folks who went to Stepping Stone, parents, were asking you to let them know and to let them know they need to support this stuff, because we don't do a good job in the community, you know, to remember where we came from,
Yes.
right? And so it's okay. You don't have to tell them. I'll tell them that.
Yes.
And I will tell them that they like to bluff. And they must come straight and support the thing.
Yes.
So you don't have to do that part. That part of what we call the dirty work, that's for me.
Right.
Right? Let them vex with me.
And we're going to call
Yes.
some of them out on the Facebook page because
Please
we
do.
are doing the register from year 1 up to year 35.
That's a very good idea, because when they see their name, they'll say, oh, that's me.
Yes.
I went there, so then they will, when you tag, what do you call it on Facebook? Tag, or they will,
Yes.
Yes, yes.
or they will tag you back?
Yes,
yes,
Oh, okay,
yes,
so
yes.
we want all the folks. So if you're 30-something, pay attention, because you might have just gone there.
Yes,
yes, yes.
Oh, okay. All right, so we're having this 35th anniversary, and first and foremost, we want to include the folks who attended the nursery.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And then after that, everyone else in the community.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. We had some activities already, or we're just starting?
Actually, the flagship activities are gonna they're gonna begin next Friday.
Yes, so
Yes,
they're starting with the
yes,
parade.
yes.
We had
Oh,
some
okay.
preliminary
Yes, yes.
activities. The main activities start
Yes,
next
next
Friday from the parade.
Yeah, from the parade.
Teacher Fortune, why don't you come closer to the microphone, because that voice has to go where, you know, I mean, people got to hear it closer. Okay, Teacher Fortune?
Okay,
Yeah,
sir.
just speak closer. Okay, so we are looking for folks to help with the planning and the execution of the activities.
Well, not
Or
necessarily.
we have a
plan-
committee that
Yes,
does
we
that.
have a
Okay.
committee.
We have a-
that-
yes.
We have a strong committee. We met over the past weeks. We started maybe in January.
Yes.
Planning. So what we are really soliciting is folks to come out and support. Yes.
And they have, because I heard it somewhere, maybe in the news or something, the parade is the flagship thing that's starting soon.
Yes.
And when is that
sir.
again?
Friday the 25th of April.
And we have stuff going all the way down to December.
Yes, sir.
So we're not finished. We almost have a 35-year celebration.
Yes.
Oh, okay. But that's very good. Okay, what else we have? The big event is the cocktail gala award ceremony. What's involved in the awards? You mean some folks will get award for supporting, or some of the children? What's the awards all about? Appreciation for...
Okay, so we are going to show appreciation to the teachers. The patron is Mrs. Descent, and we are going to, honor them for their sterling contribution to the institution.
Patricia?
Pat,
Yes.
Descent,
Great lady.
Yes.
Well, they have what they call the female version of Superman. Wonder Woman.
Yes.
That's her.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
she's a great lady.
Yes.
And so we want to congratulate you all on the anniversary. And for serving, for being around that long, because there's an old adage of St. Nevis. You know what it is? Nothing lasts. But this made it to 35
Yes.
and counting.
And counting.
Yes.
And counting.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it must, I bet you, when we asked Pat, she would say it wasn't easy.
No.
Mm.
We actually were supposed to have celebrations in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
COVID
Yes,
came,
yes.
so we were planning activities in 2020. We had already launched it to the parents,
Yes.
and COVID interrupted that. So that's why we are now at 35, consolidating what we had then and what we want to do now.
And all of us know, once we're over 5 years old or 10, if you survive COVID, came through on the other side, you're okay.
Yes,
You're all
yes,
right.
yes.
Yeah.
You got to be thankful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so what else we got that we want to make sure that we let the public know?
Yes, so just a reminder about the parade and grand launch on Friday, the 25th of April, 9 a.m., starting at the Methodist Church grounds and ending at the Villa. And we are hoping to take that picture, a drone shot of 35, the participants forming up 35. And then we definitely want the public to come out and support the gala. This is on May 10th. We know it's the day before Mother's Day, so consider it a Mother's Day treat. The tickets are $135 per person and $235 per couple. Go ahead.
We also have early bird special until the 25th of April. Singles 120, couples 210. So there's an early bird special too.
And so the gala is from 6 to 10 p.m. So it's not too late. You can leave in time to get up early and celebrate Mother's Day with at church or whatever. And so we really want to see the public come out and support Stepping Stone and some of those same past students and past parents.
Yes.
Teacher Fortune,
Yes, sir.
why don't you have other teachers at the nursery?
Yes, sir.
Why don't you give a shout out to them? They're going to feel good about it.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
they'll appreciate it. So do that.
So I would like to say thanks to all of the caregivers, the hardworking caregivers, being at phase 1. Okay, let me start with phase 2. Mrs. Dayson, Teacher Maxine, Teacher Shezon, Teacher Ozzy, Teacher Talia, and at phase 1 where I'm at, Teacher Karen, Teacher Cherise, Teacher Barry, and myself.
I have a thing that I normally check in things. Let's go over them again. Teacher Sherry.
Okay, Teacher Descent. Teacher Descent, Teacher Maxine, Teacher Shezon, Teacher Ozzy. That's at phase 2.
Right.
And I'm at phase 1. So my caregivers are Teacher Karen, Teacher Sherry's, Teacher Barry, and myself, Teacher Fortune.
Why do I get the feeling that all those teachers are girls? Not so?
Yes, they are. We all.
Oh, okay.
Women.
Well, I say girls just because my vocabulary is very limited, and I'm always using words in the wrong way. And so I say girls because it sounds nicer. So I want to give a shout out to Teacher Pat and all the other ladies. Okay, so you got a last word?
Yes, and so we want to say thank you to our sponsors thus far. We have the Stepping Stone parents and friends. We want to say thanks to Von Radio, our legacy partner, La Boutique Del Peche 101, Divinity Touch Gift Shop Plus, the Bank of Nevis, Horsford's Nevis Center, Hammer-On Services, Brand Architectural Services Limited, Sutton Sound, Small Enterprise Development Unit, SIDU, Best Buy Supermarket, Vidal Descent and Family, JD's Production and more, the TDC Group, Ubrenta Restaurant, the STEP Program, SKN Vibes, the Nevis Island Administration, the Federal Government of St. Kitts and Nevis, Breaking Barriers Health and Fitness Club, SKN Pulse, Court St. Kitts Nevis. And so we really appreciate the support, and we are thanking those in advance who will continue to, who will come out, and those who will continue to support.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Teacher Fortune.
And thank you for having us.
And we had a long program here all year, so please come back and let us know how things are going, and especially when you're getting closer to the awards ceremony, the cocktail and all that,
yes,
so that we can remind the folks again to come. You don't have to stay that long, but come back again and let's talk about it, because I really want folks to support the Stepping Stone, understand that what they've done for the society, and appreciate them. Okay? So thank you all for coming.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us.
That's the first segment of Thought That Get Results. We'll be back with the second segment right after these.
Ready to save while you build? Now you can at Builders Paradise. Yes, shoppers, build up your Value Club points at Builders Paradise. That's right, Value Club members and shoppers, your favorite frequent buyer club is now available at the home of hardware and more. Whether you're laying tiles, painting walls, replacing doors, upgrading windows, or fixing up your home, every purchase at Builders Paradise now earns you Value Club points. Enjoy exclusive benefits like discounts on thousands of items, special savings for seniors, instant deals, quarterly rebates, plus an extra up to 2% off every quarter. Shop more, save more, and more, only at Builders Paradise. Don't miss out. Start building your rewards today with Value Club at Builders Paradise, because every bolt, board, and rush brings you closer to bigger, better savings. Terms and conditions apply.
From Queen City, Nevis, this is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, Vaughn Radio.
the second segment of Thought That Get Results. The first segment featured Teacher Fortune and Nicole Lawrence of the Anniversary Committee of the Stepping Stone Nursery. You want to try and support that event and support the Stepping Stone Nursery. The second segment, the Honorable Spencer Brand, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and a very pleasant good evening to my fellow panelists. Good evening to your hard-working staff here at Vaughan Radio, and good evening to all those who are listening to this edition of the Let's Talk show here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, to those who are listening throughout the region, the chain of Caribbean islands, to those who are listening up north, all the way over the pond up in Europe, wherever they may be. A very pleasant good evening. Webbo, I want to first of all take this opportunity to say a wonderful evening to all those who are listening, and I want to say thanks for the invitation tonight. I want to offer words of congratulations to the Stepping Stone Nursery. The segment that you had before, my 3 children attended that nursery, and I believe that based on how they are turning out in life, that they were given a very wonderful start, and the level of care and attention, I can testify to that. So I want to say congratulations to Mr. and Mrs. Descent for the wonderful institution that they have nurtured for these 35 years. I hope that all of their activities and planning will be successful, and I want to say to all those who are thinking and considering a nursery that they can certainly look to the Stepping Stone Nursery. Webbo, I want to offer condolences to all those families who are in mourning tonight. I believe that while we remember those who may have left us, I hope that we can remember them with fond memories. I hope that the family can remember the fun times, the good times, the challenges that they would have had while they were here, and I hope that their loved one, their friend, their colleague will rest in peace. Webbo, I also want to offer birthday greetings and congratulations to all those who are celebrating, whether it's a birthday, an anniversary, or some accomplishment in their life. I certainly hope that they are having a wonderful evening, and I pray that while they reflect on the celebration, that they would remember that while we partake of the celebration, that we would also remember that there are those who are, because of their circumstances, because of where they are in this world, are not able to celebrate. There are some who are in war-torn places. There are some who are behind prison bars. There are some who are feeling down for one reason or the other. I hope that they can find some semblance of hope despite the challenges that they are facing. Webbo, good evening, and thank you so very much for the invitation.
Glendale Herbert, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo. It's always a pleasure to be here. Indeed, I'd like to extend, condolences to all of those who has passed in the most recent time. Those who are, out here plying their trade, trying to get ahead. Every Nevian there is in Nevis, in the diaspora. I'd like to extend, heartfelt, support to you. Petitions as well. I'd like to extend the same thing to you, our brothers over there across the Narrows. It's always a pleasure to be here. I look forward to a lively and fruitful conversation where the entire body of people who are listening in would at least begin to, at least we can begin to pull back the veneer, pull back, the curtain a little bit, so people can see things that we can enlighten them about.
I'm going to play some clips. By themselves, they're clips. So let me not give the whole picture. But the reason why I requested them is because I wanted to touch on the topic. We may not use them right away, but I wanted to play them at the beginning of the program, get a chance so you can think about it and we can get on the topic. There are other things you may have to put on the table first, and I get that, but I'll just play this and you keep that in mind.
So the new cannabis regime legalizes religious and freedom of conscience, cultivation, possession and use of cannabis. The Constitution protects freedom of conscience, including religious freedom, and the High Court recognizes Rastafari as a protected religion. The Rastafari groups can now cultivate and use cannabis for sacramental purposes at their registered places of assembly. The law also allows licensed individuals to possess limited amount of cannabis, cultivate up to 5 plants, and smoke cannabis in designated public areas. Similarly, the possession and the cultivation and smoking outside of designated areas without a license are now ticketable offenses. And so there are responsibilities for all individuals, licensed or otherwise, including restrictions on driving under the influence and selling without a license. Minors are prohibited from cultivating and using cannabis. Designated smoking areas are regulated by the Chief Medical Officer, and a $500 ticket can be issued for smoking outside of these designated areas.
So, in a nutshell, that was some information in reference to the law as it pertains to the use and the cultivation and all that of cannabis, right? So if you want to comment now, it's okay, but I just wanted to put that in the mix, and we can go to it later. Glendale, you look as if you're raring to go. Am I correct? Not necessarily on that, but on anything.
And anything. I'm here, so it's duty call, you know. It's time to work.
So what we got? It's time to work. You're looking at me. Gran, you want to go?
This cannabis topic has been around for some time. I know that we have gone into Parliament and passed certain laws that allow the use of cannabis within certain confinements, and the Rastafari, who have been championing this cause for many decades, within the confines of their religion, have been given some opportunity, so to speak, to utilize this cannabis in their religious practices. I think, Webbo, that there has always been some concern about the addiction of this cannabis. There have always been the concern of the medical benefit, and there has been some medical benefit, proven medical benefit. The opportunity for persons to have the privilege of planting a certain number of trees, all of that encapsulates what the intention was. Webbo, I feel that as a community, this has been an issue that we find that our people continue to utilize this in places perhaps that they ought not to. That has been one of the thorny issue, and it continues to be a thorny issue. But I think that one of the thinking was that this could have been something that we could have generate some revenue from. it also spoke about the licensing of two persons to cultivate and perhaps export and all of that. But it's a broad topic. It's in my mind, Webbo, it offers an opportunity for persons who are inclined on religious grounds to utilize it. I also believe that it also offers the opportunity for science to utilize it in terms of trying to bring some relief to persons who are being afflicted by certain ailments. But I think all in all, Webbo, for me, I also think that there can also be some additional strengthening, so to speak, in the education as it relates to our younger persons. I also think that there can be perhaps some additional advantage, Webbo, of ensuring that while there may have been this opportunity presented, that it is not something that I think that we ought to take lightly. I think that it is something that should be utilized responsibly, just like anything else, just like alcohol, just like cigarette. Well, cigarette perhaps may not be such a good because of the medical, but I think the responsibility of individuals, I think that for me is an area that I think needs to be stressed a bit more. But Webbo, it's a topic that I think that continue to resonate, and I think that our people, those who are inclined and those who are not inclined to utilize it, will continue to have that conversation.
As it relates,
You think,
Yes.
you think, Mr. Brand, that when you remember a few years ago, this topic was in the headlines,
Yes.
almost, right?
Yeah.
But from what I garnered, the most focus was on what, if you can remember?
I think it was on production and exporting, if I remember correctly.
Right, and making
Yes.
more money than you can dream about.
Yes, that's it.
Okay, has that come to pass as yet?
Has it come to pass?
Because when this thing was debated and we went into parliament and so, is it not true that it sometimes was referred to as the next big thing for the economy?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what I'm asking you. How are we with that?
Well, we are far from that, Webbo. And let's be real. The idea, or perhaps the vision and the thinking was that we may, or we would have been able to see plantations of this being planted, right? We have not necessarily seen that has come to fruition.
Do we know why?
Why?
Yes.
I am not absolutely certain as to why, but I think that there has been, from my thinking, is that there perhaps has not been the level of urgency, so to speak, in pushing it.
To make all that money, you mean?
Well,
no urgency to make all that money.
Not necessarily the urgency in making the money, but the urgency in ensuring that the necessary protocols and procedures are put in place.
Yeah, but work with me. The objective was to get this industry going.
Yes.
So that we can even, don't rely on tourism.
Diversify.
Diversify. So what I'm asking is, and a lot was put into it.
Yes.
So I'm just trying to see whether or not we missed something or not, because the points that you just outlined were not emphasized during that time.
No.
Okay, Glendale, you wanted to.
well, what I think is that, of course, they use that to pass, to get it to Parliament, get it to be legalized. The medical marijuana growing and exporting and making a dollar from it. Control that is by the government or whomever whoever wanted to play in that marijuana industry or growing industry. That has not come to fruition like we just established. But in addition to that, though, what I do see is I'm beginning to detect, rather, it's like a proliferation, a broader proliferation of the use of cannabis amongst the young people. And of course it's done openly, we have legalized it, brought it to the fore, where it's done openly. I don't know if most of these places are smoking areas, designated areas as law prescribed, and that seemed to be ignored. So I don't know. I mean, I do believe, and without a scientific look at it, I do believe that what's happening right now is it's the proliferation of smoking cannabis is really, really massive within the young community, the youth community. I don't know the effects of it. I don't know the scientific effects of it. So I don't know how this will play out in society, down the road, as younger folks get older. But I've read it slows you down. It has an effect on the brain and all that sort of thing scientifically. But of course, that was, like you said, Webbo, at the onset, and Spencer also said that it was this whole bill and this whole legalization and all that was really intended for a different purpose, and not the purpose that we're seeing played out right now in society.
Webbo, two areas that have always been of concern to me on this topic has the addictive nature of it, and perhaps with the addictive nature, the mental health component. I believe, Webbo, that there are quite a lot of data that is around when it comes to those two areas. And while we seek to offer, especially to the Rastafari community who uses this in the confines of their religious practices, across the broader community, I feel that those two areas of mental health and addictive, the strong possibility of becoming addictive to it, I feel that those were areas that perhaps may not have been as fully ventilated. The mechanism put in place to ensure that those safeguards are in place. And I think while we look at the possibility of, quote unquote, making these huge sums of money, I go back to what I said earlier. It's an awesome responsibility for putting this, quote unquote, on the market, because it comes with a lot of additional challenges to our healthcare system, and perhaps with the what was expected or what was projected as additional revenue, it could also add some value as well to our healthcare system. But there is a lot of moving parts, Webbo.
And Webbo, if you allow me to permit me to sort of interject on this one again, on the heels of what Spencer just said. Like I said, the broad proliferation of the use of it now with the younger folks. I'm wondering if it would have if this would have an effect in terms of their productive ability, meaning their ability to produce in the society long term, and that is something to watch. Like you said, it has some deleterious effects, some ill effects on mental issues and brain and all that sort of thing. The scientists say. I'm wondering if this passage of this bill, has its consequences, and those consequences may not peter out to be positive in the ledger for us.
Because the big question that I wanted to put on the table is, when we were glorifying this thing about how rich we can be as a consequence, did we miss the opportunity to balance the debate?
Absolutely, Webbo. We missed that opportunity. Like you say, amazingly, none of this was a part of the debate. It was never discussed. the effects, the permissive use of it. Nobody discussed it. Nobody the potential of this. And now I see everywhere we go, out, when you're out, once there is young people, there is a tendency, I don't know if it's a trend or whatever, but they're doing it, and it's openly done. I mean, and like I said, and Spencer also said the addictive nature of it. It's a powerful addictive nature. And,
because when I picked up from what was outlined in the clip, it is almost a harness to point out to folks that this thing is not a free for all. The law says A, the law says B. Yeah. But do you not get the feeling that there was some miscommunication, and so
it's a free for all now? It's that was not the intent, and like you said, there was a miscommunication, or people just take it upon themselves and say, okay, it's a free for all now, let's do it. Let's have some candy.
But I like I said, it's a topic that has been around for some time, and I believe that while we recognize that there are indeed some challenges and some concerns, the data or the science also shows that there has been some benefit. The science would and have indicated that it has helped with things like epilepsy, chronic pain and anxiety and those kind of things. Those benefits are being well documented. So I don't want our listeners to think that we are here to say put everything in one basket, that it is all negative. That is not the case. I started by saying it is something that we have to approach in a responsible manner, and we can weigh both the negatives and the positive. There are some positive. There are people who have received significant benefits from utilizing this product, and I hope that while we can balance both the negative and the positive, we can come to a point where we look at the cost benefit, so to speak, whether the negatives outweigh the positive or the positive outweighs the negative, and move forward on that basis. But I think that it is something that certainly has scientific benefit, and of course it also have some negatives as well.
My little question, is the medical community, the people who run the medical science in St. Kitts Nevis, doctors and what have you, do they do therapeutic marijuana administering, and is it done? I don't know if it's done. Like Webbo set up and we all said that the law was passed for, of course, growth and sale and create an industry out of it. And of course, there's the positives that one can, get from this to a medical therapeutic, standpoint. The point is now, are we using it as a medical therapeutic drug in St. Kitts Nevis?
That's the $1 million question.
So, the studies are there. So again, I don't know what we're doing, but it's being used, in social circles among as a social what do you want to call it? As a social, I don't want to say drug, but as a social thing. So it's been, like I said, the use, the identifying use that the policy folks, the policy makers, them pass this with the idea behind, but pass this on is not being employed. And again, of course, it has been proven to help in cases of medicine, but is it being used therapeutically in the medical community here in St. Kitts Nevis?
Well,
targeting people with issues.
The thing about it, is it not? With anything, is effective communication.
Yeah.
Because if you have even the prescribed drugs, those that are legal, medication, you go to the doctor and stuff like that. But if it's promoted wrongly and used wrongly, it defeats the purpose. Isn't that correct?
That is absolutely correct.
So that when we were making the case for all this, as Edric would say, pile of money, did we not again miss the mark to balance the debate?
Yes.
And so we have that work to do now, right?
It's a catch-up game now.
Right.
And I don't know how we're going to correct this one first.
Okay, so what else we got?
Well, we got tariffs. That's a big one now. Tariffs, everybody's talking about tariffs, the implication of tariffs, and tariffs, global tariffs with the big global players.
And what if someone in these regions say that we do not export much to the United States and other countries, China certainly, and stuff like that, and should we feel comfortable that they wouldn't affect us?
No, we should not feel comfortable, in my opinion.
We can't feel comfortable.
You should not, yeah, because though we don't have any much to export, maybe, I don't know, 10, 15, whatever it is what we export to the United States, we should still look at what's happening, by the big players, that is China, the two biggest economies in the world, and how this ferry out at the end of the day, because it will affect us. Not in terms of direct tariffs, but it will affect us. Depends on who wins this one between those two big players. Now, if United States wins this one, always remember in the back of our minds, and I keep saying to people, our dollar is pegged to the US dollar since around 1974, and that is a serious thing. That is the reason why our dollar has never moved in terms of fluctuate. Now, if the United States wins this one, we're okay. If the United States loses this one, we have a problem. And why I say we have a problem, guys, is that if they lose this one, it simply means that the big player, China, which has the second most money invested in the United States in terms of treasury bonds, 800 billion, next to Japan, which is 1.1 trillion. If China dumps their bonds, the treasury bonds, last week Friday we saw an example of that. The dumping began and it shook up the markets. If China continued to dump, it means that the US dollar would fall because they would not have enough reserves, on their balance sheet. As a result of that, not having enough reserves on the balance sheet, the dollar will devalue. Ours will devalue automatically. As a result of that, of course, the yen would go up as a result of that because they would have more capital and money on their current balance sheets as they're pulling down from the United States Treasury bonds. It's as simple as that, and it's so it would affect us cost of living because there's a purchasing power around here. You see what happens with Jamaica, you see what happens with Guyana, all of that stuff. Now, if China wins, on the other hand, what would happen in my mind, again, we are pegged to the US dollar. And being pegged to the US dollar, it means China win this one, and it simply means that, goods that we buy from China at that point would be much, much more expensive than we thought they would be. Now, there's a lot of other implications that comes along with just not the price of goods and all that from where we stand, but there are a lot of other implications. For example, what's happening right now, if you know, and a lot of us would have heard of the BRICS countries, it's the so-called Global South countries that have come together. Of course, it started with 5 countries: Brazil, South Africa, Russia, China, and India, and forming an alliance, economic alliance amongst themselves to trade. That was born, and that was ratcheted up after 2020, 2021, when the United States began to sanction Russia. And seizing all their monies that they have in treasury bonds and everything else, throughout. Now, what they began to do as more and more affiliate countries sign on to BRICS, they began to trade amongst themselves in their own dollars, like rubles, Russian rubles. If they're buying from China, between them and the Yang, they'll exchange in that. They will not use the U.S. currency as the reserve currency. We know, for example, what I'm saying when the U.S. currency, reserve currency. If you buy a car from Japan, you're buying it from Japan. You're not going to see the Japanese money come up. For the, let's say the price 10,000, you'd always say quoted in U.S. That's because the U.S. currency is a reserve currency. That's an agreement that took place since 1944 around the world. Now, there are countries would use the U.S. currency for transaction. They convert your EC currency to Japanese to U.S. currency when you're purchasing, and that's what they quote you are. If you're buying from England, they don't quote you pound or francs or whatever. No, so. They began. Russia and let's say China would buy, let's say, gold, whatever they're buying, oil or whatever, they pay for it in rubles. And if Russia is buying from China, and vice versa, and they will accept each other currency. But the only reason they can do that is because they have minerals, valuable minerals, whether it's gold or oil. The problem is now in our OECS country we have nothing. So if China wins, what do we trade with in these countries? What do we use to trade? The countries that has high value in terms of lots of minerals. Because if you remember, the reason why money is up until 1974, 73 thereabout, or money, if you wanted something, it's always backed by gold. So you can put up your paper currency and say, listen, I want this mic to buy for $15. And I could back it with $15 worth of gold. 1 ounce of gold was worth $32, so half of that would be 15. So I could put up that, So it's always dependent on what you have in reserve in terms of your materials. So we have nothing. That would get pretty interesting. These are things that we should begin to ponder. Because we have nothing. The countries that has materials or oil or cobalt or whatever it is, they have something to trade. They have something to tie their dollar against based on its value. The material value of these things. So these are things. This could be quite consequential because I'll always say to people, and people tend to have short memories. Up until 1934, 30, wherever around the time when we went to World War II, countries, banks, even in the United States, banks used to print money. Banks had the right to print money, not the governments. So a bank could issue any amount of dollars they want, and that resulted in blowing up economies. Up to until World War II, people used to walk around with wheelbarrows, cash to buy a loaf of bread. So, because the system was not regulated. It's only until after 1944, after World War II, when the United States settled down with all the European powers and said, let's sit down and let's graft out the system. And prior to that, that is why you used to have so many wars in Europe. Europe had endless wars. France and England fought for 100 years. On and on, all the way coming through. The last 70, 80 years we haven't been having that, except for when you had the little thing with Montenegro and Serbia and them. But beyond that, Europe was always in a constant war. This is what has settled the world down.
Webbo, this tariff war is a real concern for us in this region. Our export, so to speak, to the U.S. is in my mind, a small fraction of global trade, a minute fraction of global trade. Our greatest interaction, so to speak, with our big brother to the north is mostly around tourism, financial services, and the likes. The Caribbean really is a region of high import. Practically everything we import, going from China to the US to the Caribbean. We are going to see, Webbo, that there is going to be some impact on trade throughout the region. There is no if, no maybe about that. The cost of goods, we are expecting that the longer this trade war persists, we are going to see increase in the cost of some goods here in the Federation and throughout the region. We are also will see and is expected to see that there will be a reduction perhaps in consumer confidence throughout the region. And I think once you begin to see the reduction in consumer confidence, that again can create a different set of challenges. Some of the financial experts are predicting that there will be a global recession if this thing is not sorted out very quickly. I feel that we in the Caribbean is highly vulnerable because of, Glendale touched on it, how our economies are, how our currencies are pegged to the US dollar. Once there is that fluctuation and once there is that reduction in consumer confidence, we can feel some stress on our currency and within our economies. One of the things, Webbo, that we have to be mindful of, that, and I believe that it is creating some major concern for all of the players, from hour to hour is a different utterance. There is you can't listen or hear something at 7 o'clock this morning and it holds true by 7 o'clock tonight. There is this constant change, this constant variance, and I think that more than anything else is creating a lot of disquiet, a lot of uneasiness, a lot of uncertainty within the various markets. And I believe, Webbo, that the sooner that we can have this back and forth and this trade war issue resolved, I believe that the sooner that a lot of these economies can settle down. Webbo, I can appreciate what Donald Trump is trying to achieve. Let us put the trade war issue aside. My outside view of this is that Donald Trump keeps saying that he needs a better deal for the US. The United States of America is the largest consumer of global products anywhere and everywhere. They consume practically everything that the world produces, and in higher demand than in everybody else. And at the same time, the US cost of producing similar items, for example, the cost of making a car in the United States is much more expensive than producing it in Mexico, in China, in India. The cost of labor in the US is higher than everywhere else. So while the US is consuming a lot of the global deliverables, their cost of production is also high. And I think that while the president is trying to balance that out, I am not certain if he's going to be able to do that, because the United States is the largest consumer of global products, and that is where it's at.
You know, listen, I want to go back to the United States is the largest consumer of products, maybe 39% of what the world produce, with a 350 million population. United States, the problem I'm seeing right now is that China was allowed to join the WTO, the World Trade Organization, in I think it's 2001, and they were allowed to be, and the United States saw an opportunity, of course, to get cheap goods made and move their factories offshore, 70,000 plus factories offshore to China. The result of that, China, of course, was pedestrian with it, and you know, they produced cheap goods, you know, and of course they are branded and market up and sold around the globe. China, the problem now is that China has raised its head and has become a $17 trillion economy, whereas the United States around 26 trillion. With China has a 1.4 billion people population. Now, with that in mind, China has been making some moves, and formally, what was the old paradigm in global politics, geopolitics, so to speak. Russia controlled the East, and the United States controlled the West. That's an agreement coming out of World War II. He wants to split Germany. And that went on for a number of years. Of course, Russia controlled the entire East. They invaded countries all through the 60s. Romania, Hungary, every one of them they invaded. The United States does the same thing in many ways. But, the point is, though, they have an agreement. After the Cuban Missile Crisis, you don't come west, right? Russia don't come west and try to colonize anybody in the west. The United States is not going to tolerate it, and Russia is not tolerating the United States going east. I agree. But here comes China. The third, creating a third way. And China had this magical idea saying they're going to create the Silk Road Initiative. They're going to build the Silk Road Initiative, which basically they're going to go around the world and try to build airports and support ports. That is so they can get the trade around the world. Of course, the United States coming out of the 1944 so-called Bretton Woods Agreement with the United States and all, when they made the United States dollar, the reserve dollar. Part of that was the United States would control the seas through its navy and patrol the seas, so control trade. And that part of that was also the Panama Canal, controlling the Panama Canal and all the rest of them. And Russia wasn't supposed to be in the West. No, China is the third way, with the Silk Road Initiative figuring out how to get around American and Western trade, trading routes, And that is why they go around the world and develop ports and that sort of thing. It's not because they like you. It's because they want to advance trade and begin to think about increasing their muscle and increasing their bottom line. Of course, they're into technology, and America scream and say they're stealing the IP and all that sort of thing. The point is, though, I don't believe Western Europe and the United States, and I'm going to put this in the most mild way I could put it, I don't believe Western man would ever want to lose their hegemony in the world. Before that ever happens, they'll blow it up. If you understand what I'm trying to say to you.
I understand what you're trying to say.
Western man.
Right. I want to ask, listening the content of Mr. Brown and yourself in terms of how it could affect the Caribbean. So I want to find out whether or not it wouldn't affect two particular areas. One, the tourism, because that's the main thing in the Caribbean. Now, everybody, or most people, are focused on the goods because the tariff on the goods. And when we ask, well, how would it affect us, our answer comprise of goods, because we don't export too many goods. So you have that tourism services. Tourism comes under service. And obviously, is it not correct that when people have more disposable income, they buy more vacations?
Absolutely.
That's number one. And then number two, the markets. Glendale spoke about the markets. And then I think, I don't remember who it was, but who mentioned that you can't get the same thing from one day to the next, maybe even every hour.
Yes.
And so the market keeps tumbling and not very stable and stuff like that. So how does it affect the Caribbean, people in the Caribbean? How many of us know that some of our major financial institutions, when they have excess monies, you don't have it sitting around there because it doesn't do any work.
Invest it.
Right? You go and you invest it. Where do you invest it? You can't invest it with me. You can't invest it with Glendale. So you go on the same stock exchange and so on and so forth. How many people remember that when we had the meltdown in, I think it was 2008, some of the financial institutions here took big hits.
Yep.
So maybe, Glendale, Mr. Brand, you can speak to them. Those.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Webbo. And not only that, but we invest monies in treasury bonds. Our big banks do. Like National, which is the largest bank in the OECS in the region. Period. They were we're a $5 billion bank today. A lot of their monies are sitting there. If your devaluation hits, they're not getting anything back on the dollar. Because in terms of interest. This, is a serious conundrum that we have to really look at. Now, tourism, we get a number of airlifts here. They will slow down because uncertainty breeds, uncertainty breeds people what do you call it, pulling back. Yeah. People are not going to be excessive
Consumer
shaken. So I mean, this has so much, so much of an effect in so many different areas, on us here in the Caribbean, here in St. Kitts Nevis. It ought not to be taken like a lot of our big plants that are here with the Marriott, all of them. They will, if they are affected because you don't get the airlift or you don't get the drops. People get Lego,
As I said earlier, Webbo, I took a note of it. I think I wrote down earlier, reduce consumer confidence. And once we begin to see that creeping in places like United States, Europe, Canada, once that consumer confidence is taking a nosedive, once people are seeing that their 401k are taking a beating, once there is the level of uncertainty when it comes to job security, people are not necessarily going to be thinking about taking a vacation. And the Caribbean is an area that is heavily dependent on tourism. And as Glendale mentioned, the amount of airlift into the region definitely will be significantly impacted. Caribbean's economy is heavily dependent on tourism. And once our tourism sector begin to suffer, so to speak, then it creates some additional shocks within our economy. So it is of some great concern for the region. It can have some lasting impacts in the various communities, and these various communities are already struggling because of one reason or the other. And I think that this tariff war is just another layer of frustration and anxiety within the region. I would say one last thing on this matter, Webbo, the matter of inflation. Again, I took a note of that. And we can begin to see with this tariff war an increase in the inflation. And once we begin to see a rise in inflation, then we can see another set of different challenges within our communities.
A recession is, I think, is what, 3 consecutive quarters or 3 consecutive negative growth. No, 3 consecutive months of negative growth.
Well, Glendale,
right. Negative growth.
I will put a caveat there. The way things going, that road is out the window.
Right. And if we begin to see a recession and start biting, that start to bite. I mean, guys. Let's start running for the hills. And I don't wish for that. All the big houses, the big like Goldman Sachs and them is 49%. They say there will be a recession. Some of them are predicting up to 60% of recession. The big houses, investment houses, are saying this sort of this. That's the kind of thing they're putting out. They're predicting it. One of the things I picked up on today, Amazon canceled all the orders out of China. Today. So whatever goods are coming through, that's going to get interesting. Another thing is also, one of the things we have to keep in mind, we buy, the United States, I said we, but the United States buys about $600 billion worth of goods from China. China probably takes in 100 and something billion from the US. About a $300 and $400 billion gap is trade deficit between them. The argument basically is the United States is saying basically, I've been charging 2.5% globally for the most part, except for cars, on goods into Western Europe for the last 70, 80 years, since 1944. We haven't moved it because the part of that charging so low was to help Europe like England and France and Germany to rebuild their country through the Marshall Plan. So they kept it at that. But of course, Obama and everybody was saying it for years. This has been coming for years, that they have to address it. Okay, Spencer says Trump pulled the trigger, but by saying, listen, guys, we gotta restructure this. This has to be restructured. Lastly, just so you can create some color to the discussion. The United States taking about 1 million cars from Japan, Honda, Toyotas, etc. per year is bought in the States. They sell less than 100,000 cars to Japan. They tariff them high. You see, to protect their economies, and this goes on, and it's, I don't know, guys.
You spoke about the Amazon cancelling, pausing, whatever you want to call it, orders from China, but I think you missed the big one.
What's that?
China have either put a pause or cancel the orders from Boeing.
Wow.
Boeing, that airline manufacturing company, is the largest exporter in the United States. And China has been bold enough to say to the rest of the world, we are willing to feel some pain so that the other side of the ocean can know that we are prepared to stand up to you. Now, on a political front, Webbo, the government in China does not necessarily have an election to face. President Trump and the Republicans, in a couple of years' time, have to go back to the people to get a renewed mandate, and in 4 years' time, well, based on how it's looking, Trump looks as though he might want to run again a third time, but that's another story. But I think that the Chinese have an opportunity to wait this one out for a little bit. I don't think that the United States have that luxury when it comes on to the political side of it. And I think that that is some of the moves that we are beginning to see, that some of the tariff that China is imposing on the United States is going directly at the root of the political setup in the United States. Some of those farmers, some of those areas that the Republicans are heavily dependent on to retain their hold on governance in the United States. China have decided to take a strategical response to this tariff war from a political point of view and hitting the Republicans in areas and in township and in constituency where it could very well cost them significant political loss.
That maybe have a little bit of legs. May? I'll tell you why I'm saying this. But one of the things I thought China made a big blunder. We did it this weekend. A miscalculation. I think they made a major miscalculation this weekend. I think when they released those, I don't know if you guys saw these things on TikTok, where they showed they made Louis Vuitton Gucci bags, Louis Vuitton bags, how they make furniture, high-end furniture, all these high-end brands, it doesn't matter, Chanel, whatever. And they put them out there, how cheap they are. It takes to make, let's say, a Chanel bag, maybe $250 to make it. But yet it's been sold for $3,000. Or Hermes for $30,000. And they put out all this stuff out this weekend. And it's an attempt, it was an attempt to undermine Western brands. When I say Western, not just American brands, because a lot of European brands like Louis Vuitton and Gucci, a bunch of them, it was being attacked. I think what that does is it's going to unify Western Europe and the United States, because you cannot, the one thing you cannot do, you're going to the heart of the economic system, the branding system, and major companies, and undermining major companies. And I think, like I said earlier, Western man going to unify. And you're undermining their markets, you're undermining the system you know, the capital system, how they capitalize and make markets, how United States make markets with a lot of these big brands. And that, because if you do that and they're actually asking the public to come and buy the same things from them. They may not have the tags on them, but they come and buy it from them. So here's where it's going to get pretty interesting now, because these brands are not going to go under. These are multi-billion-dollar brands globally, right? They're not going to go under, and the political operatives are not going to allow it. The system will not allow it, and that, I think, was one of the major blunders they made this weekend by going after Western brands, the entire name it, because whatever is made in China, they put it out there how cheap it is, and you can buy it directly from China. You know, and we're looking for people to be what do you call that again? We are looking for people so they can buy on the behalf of us or trade on the behalf of us in the West, and they're putting up the numbers and all that. I was looking at it; it's pretty interesting. Watch you see. This is going to get very, very interesting. I don't know if it's going to affect the brands directly, because they're exposing Nike and everybody else, Adidas, everybody else. They're exposing them. They literally put them out there like that. Right, and same as telling the world how much money they're making, and come to China, you can get the same thing cheaper. You know, that is a big issue, and that is, I think, is the one unifying thing that is going to unify the so-called West.
Well, Glendale, it has been well known and well documented that a lot of these major brand names, manufacturers, are taking their manufacturing operation to places like China and Mexico, was mainly due because of the very low cost that they are being able to manufacture these products at, and then bring them back into the United States, in the Western world, and sell them at a premium. That has been well known, that has been well documented. Will it have an impact on these global brand? It depends on how long this tariff war, because I think a lot of these companies have significant reserves that kind of weather a battle for a few months, right? How long, we are not certain.
Let me take this. Good evening, thank you for holding.
Good evening. That was an interesting observation just now about the branding, essentially copying the branding. But the thing is, it's the United States who essentially throw the trade rules out the door. And I guess that includes things like patents, right? And so it's one of the consequences of not adhering to the rules-based system of trade, right? And that I think is the problem right now, right? It's like anything goes and everything goes, right? And in that kind of environment, it's like nobody knows what's next. Uncertainty is I think, the word of the day. Right, I remember when we had the crisis in, 2009, 10, when Lula was still president in Brazil, okay? And I remember him making a comment about the world was being run by old white men who thought they knew everything and didn't know anything, right? And I think we're almost at that stage again, where nobody knows how this is all going to pan out, right? And that's not a good feeling, neither for us or anybody else, right? And I don't see, everybody is saying that they should be scrambling to deal with the fallout of these things. But how could you deal with the fallout when you don't know what the fallout is going to be?
Caller, I could join in?
Sure.
You know that the term mammals and animals and all that, right?
Uh-huh.
And people argue, maybe it's true, I don't know, that why we are superior to everybody else, all the other mammals and animals and stuff like that, is because we are organized. You agree with that? We are organized in a structured way, society.
To some extent, yes.
Right, because man by nature.
Ants are organized too, and bees. But
right,
anyway,
right,
yeah.
right. But man by nature was disorganized.
Mm-hmm.
The man by nature wants to be free and do as they like. But what we do, we form laws and rules and so on, and we organize in a structured way. The other animals and them don't do that.
Okay.
You agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, for us to continue to succeed or operate that way, then we have to continue to do that, correct? Obey the rules.
That's not, but that's the whole point.
Exactly. And now, work with me. Are we not at a stage now where it seems as if not even the courts, which sometimes are in our structured society, or even when we're playing cricket, umpire's decision is final, and that is how we are able to continue and play our next game, because we accept the umpire's decision whether we really feel it was correct or not. Correct?
Yeah.
Right. So if we reach to a stage in the society, in the world, where nobody then begin to say the court's decision is final, even if we don't agree, do we not go back to chaos?
Yes, the law of the jungle.
Okay.
And might is right.
Right. So until and unless we can get to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
We wouldn't. To your question, we wouldn't know what is next and how to operate. Correct?
Right.
Okay. So that's my input.
Yeah, but is that a nice place to be in? What's going to happen to countries like us who don't have the might? What do we do? Do we just roll over, or do we go with the flow? Do we look for other alliances? I mean, what are our options? That's the problem. That's the question. I have no doubt that a lot of nations are waking up to the fact that the rules-based order is out the door, right? But the response to it is going to be really interesting. I mean, how normally when you have somebody doing that, then people would gravitate around it. You'd expect them to at least have allies around them, but they're going after their own allies. And so that is what makes everything so murky. Nobody, there are no alliances now that can say, well, we're the majority, so the rest of the world would basically have to walk in lockstep. It's not like that anymore.
You ever heard this terminology? Some people break down in order to rebuild. You ever heard that?
I've heard that, but
right. Walk with me. But I caution, sometimes you may break down feeling you have the ability to rebuild. However, are you old enough to hear of the fairy tale? Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall, and all the king's horses, hear what whose horses we said? Kings. And all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again because he broke in so many pieces.
And that's the fear. How could you upset the whole order of things and not have something in place of it?
Okay, so what I did, although I don't have a lot of big words and so on, it makes sense what I said?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
and that's what we seem to be heading for. Every day is something. But remember, Donald Trump's first presidency was like that, Every day was something, And so I guess he felt it worked for him then, and it's going to work for him now. And I don't know what's going to happen 2 years from now. None of us knows.
Well, do you know what will happen? You said that's how he operated in his first presidency, correct?
Yes.
And that's how he's operating in his second.
Pretty much.
Correct? Work with me. Do you know how he will operate in his third? Think about it and call that. Go ahead, Glenda. What?
Only the best with it. But on a serious note, though, this is very, very, very fragile where we are right now, and I don't know if enough of us are appreciating where we are, the fragility of it. That is, at any point, anything can happen at this stage. United States, of course, would not back down with the personality we have at present. And the Chinese has a resolve, a 4,000 or 5,000 year resolve, in terms, it's a homogeneous society, whereas America is an amalgamation of people from all parts of the world. It's the only country that was built on immigration and immigrants. It's not a homogeneous society. Attitudes are different. United States feels threatened from its position. China, of course, like I said, began to push for a third way outside the Russia, the so-called bipolar world between Russia and the United States. And by even coming as far as the Panama Canal and beginning to lease parts of the Panama Canal, so that and that's an affront to the United States, who built the canal and coming into the West. These are serious matters. They've never been worked out between the United States and China like Russia and the United States has worked theirs out. I mean, Russia and the United States almost came to World War III with the Cuban Missile Crisis, nuclear war. This is precarious, and like I said, there is a breakdown. I am predicting, though, that Western Europe and the United States, the global North, will coalesce. China has had a free reign in Africa, and through its Belt and Road Initiative and South Asia, in terms of building out ports and stuff like that, because that was left by the West and not attended to. But I don't know if any one of you heard this, but when Marco Rubio went to Jamaica, visited Jamaica, he said one of the initiatives that came out of that meeting with the Prime Minister of Jamaica, Holness, is that the United States has said, anything you need, Jamaica. And I think that was extended to the Caribbean, but I'm not sure. Anything you need, to our embassies, if you need projects or whatever, put your projects to our embassies and we would approve them based on what they are. Because, China has been doing stuff in the West, like building ports and what have you. And I think that's an initiative they were beginning to ferry out through that visit. They're looking at things different. Because of course, like you said, China would go around and build certain things. These are things that are coming out of all this.
Glendale, you said that the United States may not back down.
Will not with the personalities.
Will not back down.
Yeah, in charge.
I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure, because I think oftentimes when there is that very aggressive pushback, there appear to be that pause and that flinching to a point of reconsideration. We were expecting that this tariff war, so to speak, would have already reached to a point where something would have had to give. But what do we have? We have tariff at one level today, tomorrow it's at a different level. Yesterday it was at a particular level, and there is this erratic response and behavior, so to speak. It's almost as if that the level of chaos and confusion within the decision-making process is such that, sadly, it's almost as if the United States can't find its bearing or its footing, so to speak, in this issue. You spoke about Africa was left abandoned. I'm paraphrasing and rephrasing your comment. When we look at some of the decisions that has taken place in the last few weeks, there is even greater regression, so to speak, from the rest of the world by the United States. When the United States is going to literally cut off US aid to countries, and I am not saying that they shouldn't. I am not saying that they can't or they ought not to. I'm not saying that they should not reassess their donor programs and their policies. But it is a cause for concern in countries in Africa, in other developing countries where the US aid and the food feeding program and the medical assistance program that are saving hundreds of thousands of children on a day-to-day basis. What message is that sending to perhaps the rest of the world? Is it that the United States is retreating from the rest of the world and is giving places like China and Russia fertile ground to take over and to insert themselves?
Well, China and Russia has been in Africa, particularly Russia has been in Africa for the last maybe 30, 40 years. Russia has been doing things in Africa.
Yeah.
China is a newcomer and is seen in Africa. The United States and Europe pretty much turned their back on Africa, except for the French in the Francophone countries, the 14 countries that they control. Basically, the United States has recognized, and I think they need to make a play, and they're beginning to make a play from what I see. Yes, you talk about all the programs that they cut, like USAID and all that, but those are political stuff, internal political stuff in the United States. Democrats and Republicans, and trying to rewrite the Republicans trying to rewrite what they perceive. The Democrats use these aid programs, to buttress themselves and through philanthropies and get back money into the back door. That's how they claim it is. So they're trying to so-called write those, but that's a different issue. And the bottom line to this, though, the United States has to address the matters, the life and death matters of people, and the quality of life issues. People in countries, whether it's in Africa and the Caribbean, they have to begin to go back to the drawing board, I think, in terms of development aid and that sort of thing. I think there's a recognition on their part at this point that they stepped away from it, and the Chinese have slipped in. And doing what they do to the Belt and Road Initiative, the Silk Road, whatever they call it, initiative, which is to go to find trading partners around the world. And that's basically what that is about. Now, I'll say this to you, one of the things that when you heard Trump say, for example, okay, we need China, Canada, the 51st state as a play. That was funny. But basically that is seeking an economic union with Canada, a trading economic union to buttress the balance sheet. As it goes up against Russia, not Russia, sorry, China, and the whole same with the Greenland thing. Is all global positioning. But matter of fact, I'll say this to you, Spencer and Webbo, is the United States has been angling for Greenland since 1952. They were going to take it a number of times. They were attempted to take it. On Truman, it started under President Truman in 1952. Because they saw it as a point and the north between Europe and Greenland, where the Russians come to the Baltic or whatever, and they can cut them off right there. And they recognize there's a lot of minerals and whatever, the rare earth minerals in the same area. So, I mean, they're making a play for it. It's all they recognize China is on their heels in terms of, again, like I said, they're not as much as a heel as a lot of people report.
Let me ask this, please. This surprise anybody? What is going on now in the world?
Well,
yeah.
How is surprising, but the Trump doctrine and the Trump philosophy of tariff is nothing new. This is something that he has been saying for
40 years.
30, 40 many years.
Yeah, but in the whole package, does it surprise you all? Because, for instance, Glendale just made reference to the rare earth minerals. You hear about the naming of the Panama Canal, the renaming of that. You heard about the acquisition of Greenland, and etc., etc. I'm just making the point. Should it surprise us or anybody who did history in school? Last week in Passion I made a point, asked a question, made an accusation. The problem is we too bright, right? That is the history
of the world,
using different words, different people, and not using canoes and swords.
Right.
That's true.
As Edric Stanley, I missed that guy. Are you following me?
Oh yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Using economic tools.
Yes. I mean, this has been going on forever. I mean, these kind of, as Webbo just cited. I mean, if we keep it basic, nobody gives up power. Power concedes nothing without demand, and nobody ever gives up power. I don't care who it is. And when you're in a powerful position, you will do what it takes to maintain it. Especially when it comes to a country. Even you have two countries together and one wants to secede. The country that the bigger country would not relent, because it's an embarrassment on the leadership. The person who is in leadership, then they would never allow that. That cannot happen on your watch. You see, so I mean, none of these things is new. And like I said, we're at the crossroads.
But what if you had a leader who said, "You want us to see it? Go ahead, get a."
You will not be elected again. Well, you will not be elected again. Not in that. Not no. The opposition would take. Let me give a little example. You see the same Panama Canal in 1978. President Carter said, "I'll sell Panama back the canal, not back. Sell Panama the canal for $1."
Yes.
Let me get this.
It caused him to lose election.
Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Yes, I'm calling back, and I'm saying that there probably would be no world for Donald Trump to run a third term if it continues in this way. And to answer your question directly, did anybody foresee this? I think everybody was blindsided by this. Nobody thought that things like colonialism and imperialism and just snatching up people's land and country just like that would have ever happened at this point in time. Okay? I don't think anybody saw the speed with all this could happen. Nobody
let me ask you this. You said nobody? So walk with me. So you don't find that Mr. Brand fit under being somebody?
Mr. Brand, sorry?
Yeah.
Come in?
Yeah, let him speak for himself, Mr. Brand.
Mr. Brand?
Webbo, I said the whole. My position is that Donald Trump has been speaking about tariff for 20, 30, 40 years. But how he's going about it is remarkable.
Exactly. Nobody really foresee that in just a space of a few months that the world would change like this. And not only that, the world would, well, first of all, that America would change like this, where it's almost like it's an autocracy as opposed to a democracy, right? Nobody, I think, could have envisaged this.
Okay, but let me ask you another question. You know Glendale, you know him by hearing him and engaging, Glendale Herbert.
Uh-huh.
Would you categorize him under the heading of being somebody?
What do you mean? He foresaw this?
No, walk with me. Okay? Let Glendale speak for himself.
Okay. Glendale, did you see all of this coming?
No, I did not see. Nobody saw this coming. I don't know anybody who saw this coming.
It's hard pressed to find anybody who could have predicted the state of the world as it is now. Okay? And when you put AI into the mix, nobody knows what's coming down the road either. Right?
Webbo, did you saw this coming?
If geniuses like you and Glendale and the caller didn't see it coming, what do you think of poor me?
When Trump said that he's going to be a dictator on day one, everybody laughed.
There's one or two of us who were not laughing though.
That's right.
So that everybody thing, I understand it to be a word or a term used for emphasis, right? But on a serious note, there were people who sighed.
Yeah.
Well,
you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
But in that vein, would you predict at this point that slavery mightn't come back?
Slavery might come back.
Nobody, again I would say, nobody can say no with any certainty about anything. That never again.
Well, I suppose with some things we'll never know. But I will tell you that there's some things we'll have a hard time coming back. Because, it's not always the people who in front will win, So it's not always the current people who are on stage who perhaps will deliver. So always keep that in mind.
What if they have the mic though? What if they have the mic?
The Bible, walk with me, I'm answering you and we don't have a lot of time. What if they have the mic? Somewhere it was written or the story was told that a fellow had the might called a giant, and he was slain by a little fellow who had no might.
A nice biblical tale.
Okay, good.
The real world is something else.
Oh, that's part of the real world, sir.
Part of the real world.
That's part of the real world, right?
Okay.
Anyway, who's got the last word?
I just want to say this is a very precarious time. Formally, or not formally, up until now, America is the only place that can make markets, and that's just a fact. That's where everybody put their funds there and invest there. And if they cannot make markets, I don't know where we're going to go. I don't know what the new framework would be. You making markets, bring things to market, to the, I guess to the capital markets and then into, to the banks and print money. I don't know how we're going to do this. I don't know where we're going to go if this untangles, unravels rather.
Well, Glendale is correct. We are not in a good place, and I am hopeful that sooner rather than later cooler heads would prevail. I hold fast to my point that the how is what is troubling, and I'm hoping that they can get to a point where they can sit across the table, negotiate as fiercely as they can to come to an acceptable, I don't know if there will ever be an acceptable agreement in trade when there are livelihoods and serious significant monies are involved, but I'm hoping that it can get to a point where we can get past this, because this is a shockwave going throughout the four corners of the globe, Webbo. It is having serious concerns in all capitals throughout the world, and I feel that the sooner it's done, the sooner people can get back to some semblance of normalcy. And let me say good night to Theodore Ted Hobson, Conrad Naya Libert, and Roger Fifield, wherever they may be tonight.
Good night to everybody. It's been a pleasure, and as usual, from the Powerhouse, this has been a good, this has been a worthwhile event in terms of looking at things as they are.
That's the last word. This program repeats tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, following the VON News Minute. Join the Honorable Mark Brantley tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for On Demand. Join Keats Cabrew on Thursday evening at 8 o'clock for Government at Work. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community. Thought that get results. You all have a wonderful evening.